In the 1950s, near Moscow, a design of a new interceptor was taking form. This new aircraft needed to reach a speed of Mach 2 or be faster, and it also needed to be at least as modern as the newest American fighters. Development. In 1953, the Soviet Union decided that they needed a new high-performance fighter capable of reaching Mach 2, and to everyone's surprise, this project will end up producing one of the most successful and the most produced supersonic fighter in history, the Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-21. At the start of the project, one prototype was built, the Yi-2, which at the time it had a swept-wing design with a 57 degrees wing sweep, like the MiG-19. And it was equipped with the Mikulan AM-9E turbojet engine with 3,250 kilograms or 32 kilonewtons of thrust. After the testing of the prototype in 1954, with different types of wing, it was decided to use the delta wing configuration because of the better maneuverability and less drag at higher speeds. Unfortunately, thanks to this decision, the aircraft wasted more speed during maneuvers, making it less suited for dogfights. Thanks to the new design, in 1956, the new prototype designated Yi-4 was able to fly, but unfortunately it was unable to reach Mach 2. Not only that, but it was also slower than the, already in production, MiG-19. Fortunately for the MiG-21, in 1957, a new engine was available for the prototypes, the R-11S, which was able to produce around 5,100 kilograms or 50 kilonewtons of thrust. Thanks to that engine, and a couple of minor adjustments to the fuselage, the prototype was finally able to reach 2,000 km per hour at 20,000 meters. Despite one of the prototypes exploding in 1958, in 1959 the Yi-6-3 was fitted with the new R-11F2S-300 engine, which was able to produce 6,000 kilograms or 60 kilonewtons of thrust. This prototype was designated MiG-21F and had a production of 30 aircrafts, and finally in 1960 the MiG-21F-13 entered service in the Soviet Air Force. Performance. The MiG-21 was able to go easily over Mach 2, but it had a very limited range since it was a very light aircraft and, in its early variants, had the capacity of storing just 2,470 liters or 653 gallons of fuel without external tanks. Apart from its range, the aircraft had other drawbacks. The armament was composed only by a NR-30, a 30mm automatic cannon, with 60 rounds of ammunition, and 2 K-13 air-to-air heat-seeking missile. It initially lacked a radar and a radar warning receiver. And thanks to the positioning of the fuel tanks, during flight, its center of gravity shifted backwards, rendering the aircraft unstable during landing. During this aircraft's career, a lot of its problems were fixed. For example, after the 115th fighter produced, the MiG-21 received the RWR. With the MiG-21P in 1961 it also received a radar. The MiG-21MF, SMT and BIS, in the 1970s, were equipped with a better radar, engine, larger fuel tanks, better IR missiles, semi-active radar homing missiles, and better ground attack capabilities. Career. The MiG-21 was used primarily as a close-range interceptor, in its early variants, and as an air superiority fighter during its impressive career. This piece of Soviet engineering is still flying to this very day, and it has been operated by over 50 different air forces around the world. Right after entering in service in the Soviet Air Force, the MiG-21 F-13 was sold to the Finnish Air Force in 1963 to extend the Soviet influence over Finland and prevent the USA to gain another satellite country near the Soviet borders. Thanks to this move, the MiG-21 started to become the standard air superiority fighter and interceptor of every allied of the Soviet Union. In 1965, the MiG-21 F-13 started to fight in the Vietnam War, where it was used to intercept Americans' F-105 Thunderchiefs and sometimes even F-4 Phantoms. In 1966, Vietnam received the newer MiG-21 PFM, equipped with an air interception radar and the new GSH-23 double-barreled 23mm cannon mounted as a gun pod. Following the heavy losses of MiG-21s thanks to Operation Bolo, in early 1967 North Vietnam decided to not use this aircraft for an entire year. Meanwhile, during the same year in the 6 Days War and in 1973 in the Yom Kippur War, the Egyptian and Syrian air forces both used this aircraft as their main air superiority fighters. In 1971 the North Vietnam People's Air Force decided to acquire the newest export version of the MiG-21 in order to recover their losses during the war, the MiG-21MF, which was able to use the newer K-13M or R-13 heat-seeking missile and was used until the end of the Vietnam War. At the same time it also operated in the Indo-Pakistani War of 1971, on the Indian side, where MiG-21FLs faced the Mirage 3s and the F-104 as in Pakistani service. It also took part in the Ogaden War between Ethiopia and Somalia in 1977 on the Somali side, where they sustained heavy losses to the enemy F-5s because of the poor training of the MiG-21's pilots, and the Soviets stopped providing spare parts. The MiG-21MF and BIS during the 80s fought in the Iran-Iraq War, on the Iraqi side, where they performed relatively well considering that the opposing side was operating the F-14A Tomcat. At this point this aircraft already started to show its age, but nevertheless it continued to see service in the 1991 Gulf War, where it got absolutely destroyed by the American Teen series of aircraft, namely F-14, F-15, F-16 and F-18. It saw combat in the Yugoslavian wars as a ground attack aircraft, and it's still in service today with the Indian and Romanian air forces. During all this time the MiG-21 was produced not only by the Soviet Union itself but also by Yugoslavia, and even without a license in China, this version was equipped with both Western and Eastern technologies and produced until 2006. It was called J-7. While in service in the Indian Air Force, the MiG-21 was upgraded at the point of being able to use R-73 heat-seeking missiles as well as R-77 radar homing missile, and with that armament was able to down a Pakistani F-16, but these claims have been dismissed by both the Pakistani and U.S. government without any evidences supporting any of the parties involved. In the end, this remarkable machine took part in basically almost all the major conflicts in the world between the 1960s and the 2000s, with hundreds of them still flying today as air superiority fighters, but unfortunately not for a long time because of spare parts shortages, and with even more modern fighters being produced, this aircraft will be soon put out of service. At this point we will be able to see it only in museums, but it will remain in history as one of the most produced, long-lived, battle-hardened fighter that has ever flew all around the world. You are free to leave a like and subscribe so you can help me make new videos. Bye and have a great time.